Hello and welcome. This is Thomas. My pronouns are he and him. Thank you for joining me. This podcast is being recorded in Honolulu, Hawaii. I acknowledge that the unceded Aina on which I live, our land called Kakako, is part of the larger territory recognized by Kanaka Maoli or Indigenous Hawaiians. I'm honored, I'm so grateful, as is my husband, to be guests of the Hawaiian Kingdom. As an author, I know the value of writing. And even more important, I know the power of story. Let's take a journey down memory lane. How much do you remember about the last 3 months? Do you remember everything you did? Or is it a bit of a blur and you remember just a handful of moments? When I think back, I almost always find that time has flown and I remember much fewer things than I'd expect. Was it really nearly 5 years ago that we first went into lockdown? In this episode, wow, number 17, borrowing from the work of Matthew Dix, he's the author of Storyworthy, I'm going to outline and encourage you to learn and utilize a method to keep track of your days in a really interesting way. And I'm actually going to begin it myself. And don't worry, I'm not going to suggest writing a diary, and I'm going to share a process to help you actually create this habit. The inspiration for this podcast actually comes from a place of sadness for me. A short time ago, I realized because of coming from a fractured family and now having most of my family passed away, I really know a few stories about my family members. And there was no one left. There's no one left to tell me stories about them. And of course, having the rich life that I have with my husband, with some amazing friends, very dear friends, and a deep connection to what I call the new generation of Dolans, and of course, their children. And of course, now those children have had children. Does that make sense? I begin to I began to think of a way to capture some of my everyday stories. And perhaps this will be my next book. Dick's book, Storyworthy, has an exercise called Homework for Life. Its intention is to have you, at the end of your day, ask yourself this question. What was the most noteworthy moment of my day? You then capture it in your favorite notes app on your phone or iPad, perhaps a journal, a diary, or you create a video or sound recording of your story. The idea is to spend simply 5 minutes on this. And yes, you definitely have story-worthy moments every day. It doesn't need to be a once-in-a-lifetime moment, just something that stood out to you as an interesting occurrence. And yes, you definitely can spare 5 minutes for this. But what's the point, you ask? There's a return, and I think there are benefits for you that are pretty special. I really believe it's an opportunity to realize that even if you think your life is relatively boring or mundane, you have way more story-worthy moments than you expect. Over time, you will train yourself to live more in the moment. This is because you'll start wondering, even before the end of the day, is this the moment I'll record tonight? And as a result, you'll find yourself actually being more present, which I think is a really powerful gift to ourselves. You'll never again feel like time has flown by because now you can always look back and remember how a day, a week, or a month really went. I think time will seem to unnaturally stretch. Here's my fantasy with this. It is that one day, after I've taken my last breath, my husband, this is the assumption that I take my last breath first, my husband will read, listen, or watch my story moments. It's another way for us to connect. And even grander will be my request to Adam to make sure our goddaughter and her big brother, Sienna and Gabriel, get a copy. what a wonderful way for me to stay connected to those two beautiful souls. And perhaps other family members will want to watch or listen or read, however it is that I do this. Okay, give this a whirl at the end of your day. Here's the question. Ask yourself, if I were to tell a story for 5 minutes about something that happened today, what would it be? Once you figure out the story-worthy moment from that day, document it in a few sentences. Record it. It can be video, it can be sound. Do this daily, and soon enough you'll realize your life is colored with some really beautiful stories that are actually worth telling. And even if you don't plan on telling your stories to an audience or publishing a book using them, I really believe that these story-worthy moments have other benefits. First, they reinforce the habit of reflection and allows you to move through life at a slower pace. And due to the busyness of life, time seems to fly by at a rapid pace. Amidst the hustle and bustle, finding story-worthy moments actually prompts you to pause and to ponder. Imagine that, a pause. Second, story-worthy moments also makes your life richer and fuller. Highlighting the significant event from each day helps you connect the dots in your evolution over time. And of course, by documenting these moments, you actually get to insure them against forgetfulness and can always refer to these archives, if you will, in the future. I'm going to adopt story-worthy moments for myself. And of course, like any new habit, I'm going to give it 66 days to form. And this comes from, I believe, Robin Sharma, the monk who sold his Ferrari. I think I listened to this some time ago. Anyways, I think it goes like this. Of the 66 days that you allow a new habit to form, the first 22 days is the destruction phase. This stage is the first phase in habit development in which you need to overcome your deeply ingrained habits, your rituals, your traditions. It's actually the only way to make room for this new habit of story-worthy moments. So for me, I'm thinking, what habit do I have that would kind of take up most of my evening where if I want to do story-worthy moments, what am I going to need to let go of? So that's the destruction for there's something I need to let go of to actually add in this new habit. The next 22 days is the installation phase. It's when we're trying to install our new way of being. And then the final 22 days are called the integration phase. This is where it actually all comes together. You finally get to experience the benefits of story-worthy moments, this new habit of yours. But beyond the benefits mentioned earlier, another advantage of story-worthy moments is that you engage, if you engage in it long enough, you begin to spot these moments easily and more frequently. Some of these moments also trigger long forgotten moments from the past. And suddenly you're back in your past, reliving the stories that were once lost. And of course, these are positive, long forgotten moments that I'm referring to. And if you feel like your life is mundane and uninteresting, or it seems like life goes by too fast and you're unable to keep up, I recommend you try this homework for life. You'd be, I think, pleasantly shocked by how interesting your life is and how you just didn't notice it. In reviewing my day, I'm seeking out that one defining, possibly story-worthy moment. Oftentimes, I think the moment might be unspectacular, hardly story-worthy at all. Yet I'm going to trust I'll manage to find an actual story in my day. Maybe not a great story, maybe not even a good story, but it's a story, and that's key. Sometimes, or something that made that day different from the rest, something possibly worthy of telling someday, something worthy of sharing with the person that you love, or perhaps something worthy sharing with somebody you're in the elevator with. perhaps I will find a great story, something that I actually can't wait to tell. And remember, this is different than writing in a journal or a diary every day. That's not what this is. Journals and diaries do not demand that you find stories. A diary or a journal entry can reflect a person's thoughts and feelings for the day, but they do not require the purposeful search for story. That's the difference here. The purposeful search for story. They do not insist that the person seek a defining moment from every day in their lives. It's these defining moments that make up all the difference. It's the process of recording the stories of our lives that can actually change our life. I really like that. It's the process of recording the stories of our lives that can change our lives. I know that was the case for me while I was writing my book. It seemed quite unspectacular. But when I went back to reread or was invited to edit, I found my life in these stories. I think long gone will be my days that are no longer pretty much the same. No longer will I forget most of the things that I've done. I now know that every single day of my life now contains the kernel of a story, right? This from a writer, this from somebody who's written a memoir that's actually just loaded with stories. I'm now getting the importance of being able to chronicle this on a day-to-day basis, and not an aggregate total of something that leads to a book, just a moment in a day where I think, oh, that actually was really cool. And there's a bit of a story there. And one day I look forward to having kind of my official database of story ideas, perhaps a volume of potential stories to tell, stories good enough to tell, maybe even create that second book that I talked about. Here's something that I think is actually really, it kind of touches my heart when I thought about it. This potentially has me set myself up to no longer have more forgotten days. I can already remember some story-worthy moments clear as day. I remember cooking my husband a very special soup his mother used to make for him as a child when he was living in Taipei. It nourished him for a week while I was away. I remember holding my nephew's hand while at the Calgary Zoo with him. And of course, after arriving home, his mom sent me a picture that she'd taken from behind, me seeing myself hand in hand with Gabriel walking. Oh, it melted my heart. And I remember the snowflakes falling on Christmas Day with my husband. We walked around as the snowflakes danced around us. He'd later shared that he'd never experienced snowfall on December 25th. It was cold and quiet, and I felt so lucky to be out there with him to see the first flakes fall. Say that fast 7 times. First flakes fall. With a commitment to enter them as story-worthy moments, I get to begin to retrieve a few days that at one point in time I thought were lost to me. So those 3 stories I told you, I'd actually never thought about before. By sitting down and reviewing your day, searching for a story-worthy moment, the door to the past it often swings open, and memories long since forgotten suddenly pour through. And of course, looking for stories, as in question mark, you can follow this process as often as you can. More importantly, do you want to change your life? Do you want your days to matter? Do you want to be able to recall the moments of your life that mean so much in the moment, but they're lost so easily because they're not captured? Or so much else takes over in your life? Do you want to leave your stories for someone to read, to watch, to listen? It actually could become a legacy project for you. I'm inviting you to join me in committing to 5 minutes every day. I get confused in terms of who said this. It was either Alison Benedict or Julia Turner. And they weren't wrong by saying most days are pretty much the same. You forget most things you've done, then it's over. Please don't let that be you. I'm certainly not allowing it to be me. I think this can be legit game-changing stuff. The point isn't just to create a volume of stories for the sake of creating a volume of stories. It also encourages us to reflect on our days in a super easy to do way, thus allowing us to remember snippets of our life that would otherwise zoom past us. So join me, well, more specifically, if you'd like to join me on this journey, I'd love for you to make your own way of recording your stories with the question, what's the most story-worthy thing that happened today? Thank you for sharing this short time with me today. You are appreciated by me. It's always helpful to have you rate, review, and share my podcasts with family and friends, along with subscribing to Conversations with Thomas wherever you get your podcasts. I'm a huge proponent of taking charge of your mental health, and that means actually seeking advice from professional therapists, counselors, psychologists, physicians, and other qualified professionals. You are so worth it. These conversations are actually meant to help you find a place of inquiry. Yet if you're experiencing ongoing mental health challenges, encouraging you to please seek support from a licensed professional. And of course, I've not intended that anything I share is a replacement for that professional advice that you're being given. Most of what I share as subject matter in this podcast is usually sourced from sometimes extraordinary insights from family, dear friends, my own extraordinary insights, or things I simply bump into on my daily walk along life's path. And of course, I flavor all of what it is that I share with you in these podcasts with a healthy dose of research. Conversations with Thomas is executive produced by me, Thomas Kevin, and I'll throw in my Hawaiian name, Thomas Kevin Kekoa Dolan Ma. It is also executive produced by my purveyor of all things techie, my amazing, loving husband, Adam Ma. And of course, I'd love to hear from you. Please email me at conversationswt. The W is with, the T is Thomas, conversationswt@gmail.com. I'd love to read your feedback on my episodes, hear your suggestions for future conversations with Thomas. And if you're comfortable sharing the impact of these episodes, I'd be honored to hold that space with you. Thank you.